my
Love it.
headset on here.
First live stream, sports live stream on my channel. I'm coming out of hibernation, coming out hot with the man, the myth, the legend, Big Frank Red.
What's up, everybody?
Plug your YouTube, because don't you have one going right now?
I do. It's in the dungeon show.com. Well, no, it's just in the dungeon show, but you got to spell it ENTHA dungeon show. And it's right there, man. It's funny. I'm doing a lot of shows late at night, and I call it just kind of getting reps. I come on for like 45 minutes to an hour and just kind of bring it, man. And for the 4 people who are listening live, I am thrilled to have them. But anybody else want to check me out, check the show out, man, in the dungeon show. I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's all about the reps. And then we got, speaking of reps, we have a man that is in his chiropractor's office. Hopefully this isn't a HIPAA violation. Damn, baby.
You just got off the traction table from my low back, man. It feels better now, stretched out. So then I'm waiting to go in and see him. And then, so you get old, man, everything starts going.
Okay, well, first question before we just get everyone's initial reaction. We got Mark Graves, my loyal supporter. Usually if I'm doing something, I have one person in the chat, and it's Mark Graves. So Mark Graves says, does Paul stay on this team or does he get traded? What do you guys think?
He'll stay. He stays.
Yeah, he's staying. He's staying on the team.
Okay, yeah, I absolutely agree too. And so I'll just start it off with my initial thoughts, and then I would love to hear Frank next, because I know he just got, speaking of reps, also, like, he was just on the Krug show, so I'm sure like you've kind of got your thoughts more formulated now. But my initial thought was just good. This is awesome. Now, I don't know if that's just because I got like a quick dopamine hit to the head when I saw that there was an awesome trade involving big names going on, or if I actually believe that. But as more's coming out, it's a first-round pick in 2030, and it's top 20 protected, and it looks like the other one's a second-rounder.
27, yeah.
And it makes it just seem like, I don't know. It kind of makes me feel like at least this new sort of GM and situation, at least it seems like they have a plan and they're listening to the players, clearly listening to Draymond and Steph. So yeah, love to hear your guys' initial thoughts.
I thought it was a slam dunk, to be quite honest with you, because you don't have to think about what you're getting with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is a fierce competitor. He's about winning. And from a basketball perspective, the Warriors plus-minus ratio now in terms of efficiency, assists to turnovers, is going to go way down. So all of a sudden, that second unit, and he's going to play with the starters also, but they're going to be far more efficient in the half court. Plus, again, he's another voice to the young guys. He might be able to communicate more effectively to some of the young guys with regards to how you win, how you become a professional. From a business perspective, this is going to save Joe Lacob $100+ million. So I think it works on every level. And next year, they'll be able to get Chris off the books. So this is a slam dunk. The first round pick in 2030, the Warriors will get that back through some type of machinations or whatever the case. This is a great move. It really is.
Hell yeah. And another thing it does is, I don't know, I'm starting to have this fantasy now that it seems like, okay, Wiseman's gone. Now, obviously, Poole's gone. I mean, I hope they keep Kuminga, but I'm starting to have this little fantasy of, the movie The Expendables that came out in about 2010?
Right.
And it was like Sylvester Stallone and Arnold, and it was like all these action stars from the 80s, and they're all like 60 years old, and they've got one last job to do. And I'm kind of like, I kind of like that idea of like, you know what? The Suns are kind of stacked now. The Nuggets obviously are in a great spot. They're returning everyone. I kind of like the old dogs like Draymond, Steph, Clay, get CP3 in there. And like, hell, I don't know. Maybe there's another thing dropping. I mean, you never know. But I just like that kind of visual. As far as the draft goes, I mean, do you expect them to make any moves around the draft or just take?
I think they like a lot of players in this year's draft because there's so many unknowns. So it's going to be a lot of mistakes, particularly in the lottery. And players drafted probably somewhere between 15 and 25 are going to ultimately outshine some of the top 10 picks. So the Warriors have their eye on a few players. I think Ben Shepherd out of Belmont is somebody who you want to look at. I did a deep dive on him. He looks a lot like Klay Thompson coming out of Washington State. I love Leonard Miller. Leonard Miller is like Kuminga with more basketball intelligence. He just played more basketball. He's 6'10". He can snatch and go. He can finish around the rim. He's not the athlete that Kuminga is, but this dude could be a flat-out steal in the draft. And then Trace Jackson, you know what? He's meat and potatoes, man. That's what he is. He's 6'9", 6'10". He is an above-average rebounder, has an excellent second jump, and he can step in right now and play backup center for 20, 25 minutes a game. The problem with him, he doesn't shoot 70% from the free throw line. That disappoints me. That scares me a little bit. So, he's not bad because he's a defender, he's a rebounder, but offensively, he really doesn't fit with the Warriors. But I think they probably value him also.
And I did hear a little bit on the Karuk show. You guys were talking about the possibility of them trading Kuminga for another draft pick around between 7 and 12-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't hear your opinion on that. Seems a little bit wild to me. I feel like the guy already was held back a year, moved up a year. So he's already kind of one draft, I mean, the kid is so young. And so raw. And I just feel like if he was coming out in the draft this year, everybody would be talking themselves into him. And it's just, there's a little bit of that thing where it's we're all watching the draft YouTube videos right now. And it's it's kind of fun to be well, we can have this box that we've already opened that we know is pretty good, or we could have the mystery box that we're not sure about. And the mystery box always looks really good. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think Jonathan Kuminga, the way that you evaluate players, did you say if he came out in this year's draft, where would he be slotted? If Jonathan Kuminga came out in this year's draft, he would still be a top 10 pick. He'd probably be like a top 8, top 7 pick. He was drafted 7, so he has not lost any value. I don't have a problem with them keeping Kuminga. The challenge that I have is, can the voices that he's getting from this organization inspire him to be his best self? Because I'll go back 6 or 7 years ago. I've been around Aaron Gordon for a long period of time. And Aaron Gordon, when he came out of college, for whatever reason, he saw himself as a traditional wing who could do power forward stuff. And he kind of played around in Orlando for a couple of years, middling around, playing hard. He's a great guy. But he was not honing in on what he did best. When he got traded to Denver, the light clicked on. And all of a sudden, he realized that, you know what? My game right now is within 10 feet. I'm a defender. I'm a rebounder. I'm a finisher. And then all of a sudden, he started to shoot the ball a little better year 4, 5, 6. And now he's damn near an all-star caliber player. I would love to see Kuminga hone in to what he does best, because he's literally the best athlete in the NBA. There's nobody who's a better athlete than this guy. So I'm leaning towards keeping him. I can understand why they would trade him, because they could see a young offensive player coming in that fits their system right now. But long term, if they can reach him, I think his upside is phenomenal. I have no problem with him coming back for another year.
They got to keep Kuminga. He's looked too good at spurts. Towards the end of the regular season, it really seemed like he was picking stuff up. Mm-hmm. And the kid is also, he's completely fearless. I don't know about you. I think I'd probably rather the kind of more fearless guy that you then have to temp down than even a Moses Moody, where it's dude, you're clearly, he's almost too nice. He's almost too passive. It's not really in his nature to be confrontational and really asking for the shots and stuff. Well, okay. I want to pivot a little bit away from the Warriors, and I was talking with my buddy about this, and actually this kind of relates to that DM I sent you the other day. Yeah. I was just getting to thinking, man, so ahead of the draft, obviously Wembanyama, it's unlike anything we've really ever seen. I really have no opinion on him because it just seems like it could go anywhere. Like I feel more comfortable almost about Scoot Henderson than I do Wembanyama because Wembanyama is such a wild card. But let's just say that he is what everyone's saying he is. So then all of a sudden you kind of look at the landscape of the NBA and the superstars, and it's kind of like, well, take away if you're just looking at like the teams that have won championship, the top dogs in the league, if you take out like the American players, obviously it's like Jokic won this year, Giannis won a couple years ago, Embiid just won MVP. Luka is one of the biggest stars in the league. Like every year, people want him to win the MVP and make that jump. So you got all these guys all kind of in the prime or like slightly before their prime of their career. Now, if you think about the American players that are really holding it down for the league right now, it's still freaking like Steph Curry and LeBron, Jimmy Butler this year, KD. It's these guys that it's almost like there's a missing generation of like American stars. And it's like, where'd that go? And then you look at guys like Zion and Ja right now, and it's like, you kind of thought maybe they were going to be those guys, but now it doesn't really seem. So I just want your opinions on that. And, or if you feel a different way.
No, I think that you're onto something. You know, there are parts of the world that are doing it better than we're doing it. I think that Sharif Abdul-Rahim is a friend of mine. I have all the respect in the world for Reef. And I think that G League Elite is actually doing it right, you know. But there are other fractions of these, quote, semi-pro type of organizations that I'm not so sure about. I still believe in the college system. I think there's a reason why a Christian Braun was overlooked last year when all of a sudden he gets to the NBA and he's ready to contribute. He's not at all. And I think it's because he's gone to college. He's gone to these really good college programs. Look at Villanova. So I think that the American needs to figure out what's the best system of developing players, because I think it is starting to hurt us against the rest of the world. You even look at like our women's game, and they don't have these other, quote, fractions out there. So they have a traditional women's system. Have you seen the development of these women within our college system right now? It's a rocket ship. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think that there's something going on there. With that said, you're identifying one player for one particular country. If you look at us as a, quote, country against their country, we're still pretty darn good. I think Canada is definitely on the rise, but there's still a lot of really good American basketball players.
So, and I totally agree with all that. And yeah, the women's game is a great example, right? Because they're, they for the most part, like a Sabrina Ionescu who's like actually plays a couple of years in college. Like gets to, Miramani alum. So yeah, it's kind of insane. And then you look at the Warriors, it's like all their guys. So, okay, I will also make this one differentiation. I feel like if your parent played professional sports, you're almost like exempt from like Steph Curry gets in the NBA, Klay Thompson gets in the NBA. They already know the deal. It's not like this, like, oh my God, I'm going to be in the NBA and it's all too fast, too soon for them. They kind of get it. They kind of get the deal. I think Donovan Mitchell's another great example of that. Mm-hmm. You see it in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, these guys that just can handle themselves because they have no illusions. Austin Rivers. And you see these guys like, all the European guys, and like they kind of, I know it turns some people off, but like listen to Jokic after the championship, and he's like, yeah, this is just something I do. Like these guys have been playing professional basketball since they were like 15 years old, and they're not playing AAU and all that kind of. There's a lot of good that comes with it, and we all know some bad that comes with it, but just kind of that a lot of bad. Yeah. Right. That like highlight culture, just like, everyone wanted to be on, around here. It's like you wanted back in the day. It's like, man, you just wanted a mixtape on Yeary's finest, man. That's all you wanted. Yeah. Just to be crossing people up and dunking on fools. So, and then what I kind of hit you in the DMs about, which I was also kind of interested. I don't know if there's really any relation here at all. But just getting off basketball for a second, you look at the hip hop game. Now, I'm not talking about like, I'm not saying there's no good rappers or like that there aren't great guys out there. I'm talking about like superstars, like people that have achieved, top of the game, mainstream success, and also have like stayed, true, like are still like good rappers and stuff. And it's like, it's kind of like the NBA with the American players. Like the guys, I think that this year was the first time since like 2000 that we went this far into the year without a number one record being a hip hop track. And It's like, it's because they're still waiting on Kendrick to drop. They're still waiting on J. Cole. They're still waiting on Future, who ironically, his name's Future, but like guys like what, 34, 35, same thing. And then, and like Drake, like those are still kind of the hit makers. And you have your Jay Hut or what's his face? Whatever. I'm blanking, but it's like you kind of have those guys that in the NBA maybe are equivalent to like a Bradley Beal or like, guys that are good, solid, maybe even Booker, but like they're not that top level. And it's like, man, hip hop, it used to be like, man, there's a new generation coming so quick, 5 years, 6 years, same thing as the NBA sort of. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the real challenge or the problem with hip hop is 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you heard the term, the animals are running the asylum, running the asylum. That's not the way it is now. The bean counters are running the asylum. So the music industry is run by non-music people. So because they have the power and the money to really feed a uneducated fan base at this point, they have the ability to make stars. All right. So they dictate who they want to be stars. And oftentimes those stars that they identify or they pick are not the most talented people. All right. Now, what happens? What happens is they sign these folks to horrible contracts. So they're really famous. They're really famous. They got chains. They got like show gigs and everybody knows them. But when you look at how the pie is sliced, it's heavily weighted in the corporations. They like that. When hip hop first started, independent record labels were a big deal. Def Jam was an independent label. Rick Rubin started that label in his dorm room at NYU. And because of relationships, because you didn't have corporations owning all the radio stations, it might be a family who owned a very prominent radio station. And you might have a relationship with a DJ that was going to, for a couple of dollars, play the best record. If it came from Rye or Frank Red or whomever, you didn't have to be attached to a major label. So the audience was able to get the best product. So, fast forward now, 30 years later, you have artists out here who are told what type of music they should make. Well, we want you to be Drake 16. We're not going to get excited by that. Or we want you to be Kendrick number 11 or, so that's the issue. The issue is the motivation to expose creativity and to be about authenticity is gone because the financial benefits are simply not there. So it's sad, but that's the problem. The corporations are running the music industry at this point.
Well, so that makes a ton of sense to me. And then we'll get back to basketball, I'm sure. But because I've been letting you know, like, I honestly kind of fell out of the hip hop game because I was just kind of like, I don't know. It felt so much like you were saying, like Drake number 16, Kendrick number 11. It's just like, man, like nothing's really feeling that original. And then like all of a sudden I started listening to all these UK rappers and it's like, these fools are all independent. They make their own beats. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to be paying for, they're kind of, it's all kind of an all-in-one situation. And then you listen to these dudes and it's like, oh yeah, I remember like there used to be a time where like, if you didn't have to just be in a box. Like in America, It feels like you are either like a trapper rapper or like, you're put into a box and you're not allowed to leave that box. If you're that kind of rapper, you're not allowed to be introspective. You're not allowed to, you know, kind of say like, yo, like, you know, making money, you know, all this stuff. It doesn't make you cool. Like I regret a lot of these things, man. Like have like actual good messages and whatnot, but also can still be, you know, they can still have like some gun bars and like, you know, kind of go crazy on some tracks, and they can be hit makers. It's like, I don't know. It's just been really refreshing for me because I'm like, dang, like this is kind of the hip hop I remember. People are telling me stories.
I really appreciate you putting me on to some of the artists that you were talking about, man, because I'm a hip hop head. I'm a hip hop artist myself. Like I'm interested in listening to more of Dave. I think Dave's dope.
Oh yeah.
You know, Central C. I mean, he's okay. You know,
Yeah.
You know, he's a really, really big star. He's kind of like their Drake, if you will, not on that level, but he's a star. You know, he's a young kid. But yo, man, I think hip hop is so big that other countries and continents realize that they don't need the United States anymore. They can be millionaires and big time stars in their own regions. And as you said, they have the comfort of authenticity and being who they are. And it is refreshing. And I think that you're onto something. I really appreciate you sharing that because I'm all in with it, man. I really am.
Have you been checking out Fredo at all?
No, I haven't heard Fredo yet, but I've checked out Dave quite a bit. So Fredo's next. Now I'm gonna, keep, sharing with you some independent artists in the United States who are still dope. Like, Ransom. I'll tell you about Ransom.
Oh, I've been listening.
Yo, he's dope, man.
Oh, he is dope.
He's dope, man. So, you know what? There's a lot of talent out there in the United States, but man, you got to dig real hard to find it because the corporations are not going to promote it. They want to promote stuff that is more in line to commercialism and put money in their pockets and really feeding the casual novice hip hop fan. So
yeah, and then transitioning back to the NBA, I just feel like we kind of see that in these, like, because when we're talking about like Jordan Poole, like Jordan Poole's not a bad guy,
right?
Not at all. Like he's probably is a great guy. He probably does great things for his family and stuff. But it's just kind of that, I don't know. I think it's just frustrating for guys like Draymond and Steph when they're like, dude, like, how can we make it so that you get it like the way we all get it? And like sometimes that is just experience. And going back to Chris Paul, I mean, so what? And Danny, if you're available, you jump in. What do you?
I'm good.
Do you think Chris Paul, like, what kind of season do you see from Chris Paul this year? Do you see revenge? I like the idea that, like, I want to see that first Suns game when it's like, yo, Chris Paul, you're out of here. You're shipping your ass to Washington. We've got Bradley Beal now. Look at all these stars. No, you're just a bunch of.
Yeah, I think he's going to be rejuvenated. I mean, this is a legitimate chance for him to actually. Graves. Yeah, I'm on the table right now. I'm getting some. I'm getting. What do we call this? What am I getting?
Combination
ultrasound and stimulation on my low back. So this is actually feels pretty good.
That's good stuff, man.
Yeah. So, but I think Paul's going to be rejuvenated. It's a legit chance for him to play with veterans that have won titles before, and he's going to probably not have to. He doesn't have to be the key guy. He's going to run the second unit. He'll play at times with Curry. I'm sure they'll limit him to like 25, 30 minutes a night. Give him, never play him on back-to-backs. And, as long as, hey, the Celebrini has gotten guys, to be able to he got Otto Porter through a full season, Otto Porter hasn't played hardly at all ever. And the Warriors staff was able to get Otto Porter in. So here's the other thing that's kind of interesting. Ryan Rollins I don't know if he was in the deal, but somehow he's not on the Warriors. I think he was in the deal. So that opens the door for another vet minimum that the Warriors can bring in because they needed roster spots. And I don't know if Kuminga actually is going anywhere because I think Chris Paul with Moody and Kuminga in the second unit, that opens the floor a little bit more spacing. I kind of like it. Plus the fact that they could trade Paul next year and use that $30 million and then a team that's wants to get rid of somebody that maybe like, Washington just got rid of Beal because they didn't want to have the contract on their books anymore. They can do that with Paul. It's not guaranteed, and they can just cut Paul. And so they get rid of the expiring, they can take Paul on, get rid of make a salary dump. And so the Warriors might pick up somebody big next year.
Let me tell you how smart Chris Paul is, though. Knowing Chris Paul that dude is bright, man. Chris Paul would probably retire before that happens, or tell the other team, you know what? Okay, you can trade for me and use the money, and then you can buy me out for X amount of dollars. But if I retire, then you can't do the deal. I think he'd probably retire. He's not going to let someone have that kind of leverage over him and have him not get any money. So he's going to get some money.
Is he still the head of the players union?
No, he's not. CJ McCollum is.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, okay, this just popped into my head because I was trying to run through Chris Paul recent series, some precedent for him with young guys. How about the Oklahoma City year? Everyone wrote his ass off. Everyone said that was like, the worst contract in the league, all this kind of stuff. They traded him away to OKC, buried him with all these young guys, and he gets him to the play. I think they made the playoffs, or he got him close. Yeah.
No, they made the playoffs.
They made the playoffs. And think about
how he won an opening round series.
Yes. Think about that. And then think about him just basically, they got a guy in Chris Paul where it's like, if you can't learn what Chris Paul telling you what to do, like, you're not going to be able to get it. And I feel like Draymond is another guy who's smart like that, but he can be a little bit too abrasive sometimes. I think Chris Paul running that second unit, telling Kuminga where to be, telling Moody where to be, empowering these young guys, it could be massive.
I think it will be massive. And I think that was part of the thinking of the Warriors. What else are we getting by acquiring Chris Paul outside of the obvious? And, they could probably take about a year of that. But, this dude, I haven't seen Chris Paul on a team that did not get better. Never. Yeah. I've never seen him on a team that did not get better immediately. So the Warriors are already good.
Even
He's
the
going to help them
Suns
get even better. Everybody got better.
Okay. Especially that first year, it seems like, is like there's an immediate dang.
Keep your eye on Blake Griffin, too. I just popped into my mind. Keep your eye on Blake Griffin. I got to think he probably wants to get out of Boston at this point. He's a great team guy. I can see the Warriors signing him for a vet minimum.
Ooh, I like that. And when it kind of opens up that cool world of like, who's buddies with Chris Paul,
right?
Like who's really, because they've already got the Draymond connections, the Curry connections. Also, I think a big underrated part of this whole thing is just like Curry is going to be, because Curry's getting up there and Curry is starting to he's turning into, he can get a little grumpy. And like, he was like very obvious about how annoyed he was with Poole last year. And honestly, it almost like was a compounding effect, because he was annoyed with Poole. And normally Clay sometimes can do similar things, like take kind of wild shots and do that kind of stuff. But it's not that big of a deal because it's Clay. But when you got Poole doing it and then Clay does it, I think it was just driving Steph crazy. And now it's like you got Chris Paul in there to calm everything down. Man, so could you see them making somehow any other big move, whether it be, restructuring Clay's deal to open up some more money, or, because it seems like this might be like a move with other moves in mind.
Absolutely. I think the Warriors are playing chess at this point. They are, in their minds, they evaluate better. I'm a little concerned because I saw the Miami Heat also like Leonard Miller at 18, and they know how to evaluate. I want to see the Warriors either get Leonard Miller or Ben Shepherd. I think both of those guys are top 10 level talents. So I like what the Warriors are doing. These are not like ice glacier breaking type moves, but they're moves that make a lot of sense on the basketball court. And from a fiscal standpoint, fans can't step away from that. If you're really engaged into what your organization is doing, then you have to understand that cap management and how teams work financially is a big part of it also.
Yeah, dang. So, do you have any bold predictions for tonight's draft? Any calls you want to make? Get out on the air.
I just think that maybe one or both of the Thompson twins will slip a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of what? Give me because backstory. Normally, like if you remember last year, we did that like crazy long draft show. Normally, I'm super plugged in. But because I was in the old rehab,
right.
I had not been able to like fully lock in to this or even the Giants really, which I keep being like, man, I want to talk about the Giants, but I just don't feel like I'm informed enough to talk about them.
Right.
So talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old that is a huge NBA fan. Like break down some of these. So break down some of your favorite, dudes in the draft.
Like I said, Leonard Miller, Ben Shepherd, I like.
Writing down.
Scoot Henderson. I mean, everybody, man, I love that dude, man. Listen, Scoot Henderson to me is Isaiah Thomas 2.0, the first Isaiah Thomas. He's going to be a hit. This dude is going to be a hit. I mean, I like the fact that Grady Dick came out of Kansas. I like Kansas players because I know what they do in practice. I know the level that Self holds his players to. So I think he's going to be a player, probably like a Kevin Huerter, but maybe a little better than Kevin Huerter, who's a really solid.
Better than Kevin Huerter would be fantastic.
Right, absolutely. So I'll give you one name because he doesn't really fit the NBA profile. Bryce Sensabaugh is a guy out of Ohio State. He's built like Draymond Green when he was in college. He's about 6'6", 6'7", 235. He's a little overweight. Really likes contact on offense. He can really score with contact within 15 to 17 feet. Not a real big-time three-point shooter, but a really, really good player. And somebody might get him late and see him contribute. I also like Jet Howard's upside. He didn't play a whole lot of defense, but Jet Howard is a guy who's 6'8", 6'9", who plays multiple positions. So he can play 2, he could play 3, and he could play 4. So keep your eye on Jet Howard also.
Frank, you like the guy from UCLA, Jaquez?
Love him.
I do too. I think he would be great for the Warriors because he's been a 4-year player with UCLA, and the Warriors want guys that are ready to play.
Yeah.
He seems to be a kind of a perfect fit because he knows he plays good defense. I think he could step right in and get minutes, 20 minutes a night.
I like him. He's not as natural a guard as Ben Shepherd, so he's more of like a 2-3.
Where is he slotted? Is he like going to be a first rounder?
Yeah, well, a lot of people like him somewhere between 25 and 30. And just like Coach said, Jaime Jaquez Jr. this dude's a Mexican American, right?
Yeah.
He would be the second Mexican American after Juan to be in the NBA. So he knows that he's representing his region, his heritage. His sister played at UCLA. So this dude, man, he's everything that you want in a young player as a professional. All right. And he's a teammate. Kobe was his idol. I love Jaime Jaquez Jr. I think he's going to be a player in the NBA. But Ben Shepherd, to me, has far more range than he has. And, I wish the Warriors had a late pick to draft this kid because I like Jaime.
Maybe they'll use some cash. You never know with them. I mean, one thing I'll say about Jaquez is that UCLA sort of deal they got going on over there makes me like him more because in the summers he's playing with all of these NBA stars nonstop in the gyms. And so it's like when you're talking about like a guy who can translate, who's going to be, there's no doubt that he's probably got some moves over on some of these like NBA stars. So he's going to feel comfortable rolling in there. Yeah. Absolutely.
And he's tough. He's 6'7", man.
He's tough as hell.
And he was coached well. Mick Cronin is one of the best coaches in college basketball. I don't care if you were God. If you're playing for Mick Cronin, he would be yelling at you and holding you accountable. So, I love great coaches because I know how it impacts players. And Jaime has been coached very, very well.
Dang. Okay, well, last thing, and then I'll let you jump. I know we're doing a stream before this, and then Danny, I think, has another appointment. But give me a reaction to the Celtics deal. So they're getting Kristaps. They got rid. Let me pull up the full deal for you here. Go initially just with the idea of, okay, well, Marcus Smart is now gone.
Yeah.
They got Kristaps. I don't know if they're gonna have to extend Porzingis.
They might. You would assume they will. Otherwise, I don't think he would have opted in. So yeah, they're probably going to extend him. You know what? I'm an emotional guy in terms of sports, so I love Marcus Smart. But I think Marcus Smart's personality was probably a little too overbearing for a young coach in Joe Mazzulla. And I think Joe Mazzulla probably wasn't as emotionally distraught as Boston Celtic fans were to move on from Marcus Smart, even though they initially tried to keep him and trade Brogdon. Porzingis makes them different. He makes them tough because of his skill set. They have no excuses.
None.
I mean, if Boston doesn't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and losing Game 7, Mazzulla is going to be looking for a job. He's going to be an Uber driver, the most highly paid Uber driver in the world if he don't get it done next year, because they got some ballers on that team.
And it's
Are you kidding me?
They're one. The one thing I was a little worried about is like Grant Williams, like, can he stay healthy? And then like Al Horford, like how many more years can you really count on Al to just be this dog that? And it's like, well, Porzingis solves a lot of that. He's all of a sudden kind of does some of what Horford does and some of what Grant Williams. I
think Al Horford's coming back. I don't think Grant's coming back.
Sorry, I meant to say Rob Williams.
Yeah, well, he's under contract too right now.
But like, that was my question is like, with his health and whatnot, but Porzingis is all of a sudden some insurance against that because he can change shots.
They're loaded.
They're loaded. They're absolutely loaded.
They're loaded. Now, what's the little guard from Oregon who wanted to be traded? Now he's gonna get submitted.
Pritchard?
I love Pritchard.
I love Pritchard too.
He's tough.
Yeah.
He's tough, man. So they got Derek White. I mean, man, Boston is fierce right now.
Seriously. And talking about like American stars, it's like the closest you have is Tatum. And maybe if Tatum goes crazy and next year and then, finishes top 3 in MVP and then wins a championship, maybe he'll be considered on that, final level. But man, I really wanted to see it from him. Not so much last year, but this year I was like, okay, Tatum, all right, 50 points, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah. And then before we officially jump, also it kind of scares me, just because the Grizzlies kind of put a scare into the Warriors fan base and just the Warriors. I don't like having Marcus Smart, man. Like that's exactly what y'all needed too. Is like that team needed an adult in the room. There they go. There they got one.
Yeah, I don't trust Ja. I don't. I mean, I hope the best for him. If you've ever been to Memphis is a tough city, man. For for a lot of different reasons that I'm not going to talk about on air, but it's a tough city because it's so small. It's such a small city, but there's a lot of money and a lot of fame and a lot of stuff out there that you can get involved in that is not necessarily good. I mean, obviously, everybody wants Ja to come out from this a better person and have a great run in the NBA. But Marcus Smart is an insurance policy. This is a message to Ja and the league. I'm sending to Ja saying, you know what? This is 25 games, but there's no player in the history of this league that's been bigger than the league. Jordan was gone for a year, and the league still prospered. The best player in the history of basketball was not wearing a Bulls uniform for 18 months because he wanted to go play baseball? Okay. All right. Right. Last time I checked, people still showed up to the games. The games were still on television. They still had an all-star game. You know, I mean, come on, man. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm rooting for Ja.
Absolutely. Well said. And my final comment will just be, I also like what the Wizards did. I mean, get rid of Bradley Beal. Jordan Poole's going to score 25 a game. There you go. There's there's Bradley Beal for you, basically, except for just way cheaper and with some big upside. Now, I don't know how Jordan Poole's going to fare being, face of the franchise in Chocolate City. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go, but it'll be fun to watch. He might even score 30 a game. I'm not sure.
I'm rooting for him too.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll check out some good sushi restaurants in the DC area because he won't be winning a lot of games. That's for sure. But,
Dan, you got a final comment before I end it?
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking, like you mentioned, Marcus Smart going to the Grizzlies. I wonder where Dylan Brooks is going to end up. Because isn't he a free agent?
Yes.
Brooks. So do you think the Warriors would
sack?
I mean, they got.
I think Sacramento, man. I think
really, Davion Mitchell and Dylan
he's a free agent. What's the problem with that?
Right.
Well, why do you like that?
You have two lockdown defenders in Brooks and
I think Dan's just saying that's kind of scary for the Warriors.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean,
man.
Of all the teams that have money that are in a position to win, I think Sacramento is probably the best team for him.
And very, very last thing, Chris Middleton. Do you see any world where Chris Middleton is not on the Bucks, or that the Bucks, have a major shakeup as a result of this?
I don't. I think he's going back there.
All right, cool. Well, dang, I'm excited for tonight.
Hey, how about
love the NBA draft? Oh yeah, Dan.
I was just thinking next year with Paul's $30 million. What happens if they trade? The Warriors trade him and they work out a deal where they do a sign and trade to LeBron for LeBron since he's a free agent after this year, and then they make somehow, I don't know if they could do that or whatever, but to get the salary credit or how that works.
Dan, you got to break the internet, man.
I want it. I want LeBron.
Dan comes up with some of these trades. Coach Dan. I mean, Dan, you're going to have people crashing their cars on the freeway.
Me too. I'm driving right now, man.
I know. You're going to suck all the energy out of our electric grid, What about throw Bronny in, right? Why don't you throw Bronny in too? Right?
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, there you go.
It'll be a two-team trade, a two-player trade, Chris and Cliff Paul for LeBron and Bronny. There we go.
How about that?
All right, we can end on that. Everyone go check out In the Dungeon, ENTHA Dungeon on YouTube. Frank's at Big Frank Red on Twitter.
Yo, man, thank you so much for this opportunity. I like what you're doing. I know it's going to be a big time hit. Dan, Coach Amelia, the Giants should send you a check, man.
Seriously.
You know what I'm saying? Your positive vibes, your belief, your commentary, your rousing, getting those Giants fans together is a part of this incredible story in 2023. So I just want to big you up for that. And I check you out, brother, man. You're doing a hell of a job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really, really appreciate it, Red. And I got to get your song. I got to get your song over on my channel so I can start playing that.
License it from NorCal.
Yo, thank you. I appreciate it. I actually got another joint coming out in about a month, so be on the lookout for that. All right, gentlemen, take care.
Oh, yeah. All right.
You too, Greg.
Later.
All right.